Welcome back, everyone who's here tuning in live or listening to this on demand as a replay. We are about to share Jordan here is about to share some amazing insights and really helpful knowledge, tips, strategies, specifically around Twitter growth. This is week 7 of our community building cohort. So we've got 5 weeks left to go. I said 5, is it 4? I don't know. Math is hard. You're the engineer, Jordan. You help me. But we've got a few weeks left to go where we're going to be diving in every week into continuing into these different topics that pertain to content creators, entrepreneurs, brand builders, people who are building your small businesses or online businesses, creative businesses overall. So we all know that Twitter is one of the primary platforms that has brought us all together. It's one of the places that is challenging, but also relatively straightforward for growth. And I know that you'll get into some of that today, Jordan, but Twitter is always kind of something that as content creators and entrepreneurs, we look to focus on for building communities, building audiences, sharing insightful wisdom, teachings, valuable information about your business. And a lot of people, have taken to growing on it in myriads of different ways, from, cross collaboration to promoting each other's brands and content to giveaways and Twitter threads. And there's all these kind of different tactics and things under the hood that I'm sure Jordan is going to get into. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and bring you into it. Jordan, you're already here. You've been kind of helping creators build digital leverage across the board, understand what needs to go into maximizing your efforts as a creator. And you're also a content creator yourself and an engineer, if I'm not mistaken. So you have a lot of experience with Twitter, I know, and you're also kind of on a growth journey as well on that platform. So I'm really excited to see what we're going to take away from this today, because I am going to be taking notes, but I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Hey everyone, so I'm Jordan, as already mentioned. You will see me definitely playing with playing cards. I can't stop moving my hands most of the time. That's why I do this almost constantly. I do magic, and this is kind of part of me now after maybe 8 years. So a little bit of a backstory, because the first time I presented something about Twitter, the expectations were kind of strange. A couple of people approached me and they were like, hey, I tweeted for 10 days and nothing happened. Why didn't anything happen? I made amazing tweets and amazing threads and everything was perfect, and no one followed me and no one paid any attention to me. That was an interesting comment. This was somebody who had just finished school. They haven't written a word in their life, like only maybe essays in a different language, because English was a second language to them. And the expectation was that Twitter was so easy that growth would just magically instantly happen. And yes, growth can happen very quickly. That is true. But growth doesn't magically happen. With any creator that you take that has grown exponentially fast, there is a backstory there. There is typically a lot of writing, a lot of marketing, a lot of audience research, and more often than not, more than one previous Twitter account. In my case, I have 2 previous accounts, and growing this account to almost 5,000 in a matter of maybe 2 months is impressive by at least a couple of people who mentioned that. But in any way or form, I've seen even faster growth and even more impressive results. And that was not because they were super geniuses. It was mostly because of experience. We can see the odd outlier, exploding with a video here and there or with a thread, but most of the time it's just people who have put in the work for years and they just now decided to cash in on it and build an audience. So this presentation, quote unquote presentation, because it's not really a massive presentation. I edited a Canva template for about 13 seconds and it looks like so. So very beautiful. If you look at the right corner, you'll see brand guidelines, and at the bottom you'll see 2030. This is totally me forgetting to delete those because this was the default template. And this only has 3 slides. This has the mindset slide, the 1,000 to 10,000, and 10,000 to 100,000. This is built on my framework, which is how to grow on Twitter and the different stages of growth. The different stages are 4, actually. The first stage is the mindset. We'll dive into the mindset about how you should think about Twitter if you want to grow fast, and how thinking about Twitter can be translated into connections, how it can be translated into relationships, and how it can be translated into customers, which is something that I know a lot of you are interested in. After we go through the mindset part, we are going to focus on the first part of the journey. This is getting your first 1,000 subscribers. Sorry, this is YouTube terms, followers. We're getting the first 1,000 followers. The general idea of breaking this into followers and not into one massive guide is because different stages of the journey require different focus. And if you try to handle everything in the exact same manner, you'll see very little success. A very simple example of this is motivational quotes. If a brand new account posts a motivational quote, that typically gets zero attention whatsoever. No one really cares about Greg posting his motivational quotes, no matter how good the quote is, because the meaning of any single tweet is not defined by the tweet itself. Like, it is part of it, of course, but it is defined by the person tweeting it, the context we have about that person, and the tweet itself. The combination then creates the final meaning in our heads and the final, like, dislike, enjoyment of the content. So let's start with the very, very basic part of it. The goal of Twitter is to connect with people, to really connect with people. The fuel, so to speak, of connections, as I believe it is trust. The more people trust you, the more they are ready to open up to you, the more they're ready to invest in you. And that can mean, yes, money, obviously. People are more willing to pay money to you if they trust you, but it also means time and attention. Just a second, I have a dog that wants to pee. Sorry, folks. When Asta the Beagle is in need of a bathroom, he starts bashing on the bathroom door, and I'm afraid that you might hear that and it would be annoying. So I had to tell him to go to sleep for a moment. But we'll take care of him in a minute. He's a good dog. Cool. So the rocket fuel for interpersonal connections is trust. When you trust someone, the chances you buying something from them, the chances you investing time in their post, the chances you interacting and engaging with them is so much higher. Okay. Yes, I will ask him to come in a moment when he's around. Okay, that's a deal. So the general idea of building trust is every time you post something, you post a tweet, and if you want to create a piece of content anywhere on any social network, you have to focus on trust before focusing on growth, before focusing on likes, before focusing on retweets and anything like that. This is for a simple reason. If you break the trust of your audience, you're probably not getting that back. This is the same premise as with reputation. If people trust you, that's cool. But the moment you break that trust, you maybe have one more chance. If you do have one more chance, maybe you don't have one more chance, and people stop trusting you. They can stop buying from you. They can stop paying attention to you. They can stop following you. They can ban you, block you, whatever. It doesn't matter what the manifestation is, but they'll basically create this door inside of their head, inside of their mind towards you. And we don't want that. So the first part is building that trust. This is the mindset behind this. Everything we do, every action we take on Twitter should be focused on building trust. Now, trust is built through engagement. This is the tools that the social network gives us, and this is what we're going to be focusing on. So in terms of engagement, we have 3 simple steps. Step number 1 is comments and retweets and basically adding value to other people's posts. The first step is not commenting and not writing your own content. The first step is making other people's content better. This allows you to enter the game, understand what's happening there, understand how everyone is doing things, and then moving to creating your own original content. The second part of trust is sending messages. DMs in Twitter are one of the most underutilized features. DMs are the gateway for you to connect to almost anyone. The amount of people, like in the typical social network, you have about 1% of users that are the creators, that are generating content day in and day out. And not all of them are even working on this daily. The second group of people, which is about 20%, are people who are engaging with content, people who are actively putting likes, comments, retweets, or whatever the specific network can allow. Okay, I love that concept and never thought of it from that perspective. Awesome. Yes, so up-leveling other people's content is one of the highest trust-building activities, and that's the idea of engagement. It is not, I need to engage for my thread to perform well. Like, yes, this is a side effect. This happens when you engage, your threads and your tweets perform better, but that is not the reason why they're performing better. The reason why they're performing better is when you engage with other people start trusting you more, and when they trust you more, they have a higher chance of engaging with you. The more you repeat that process, the more this thing builds up and builds up and builds up, and at some point, you see every one of your threads having engagement, every one of your threads having likes and retweets and all the good stuff. And this is the manifestation of trust towards you. And the same can be said about sales, the same can be said about getting your products or going into your newsletter. So the first part is writing good comments. The second part is sending the DMs. DMs are a way to bridge that trust. Comments and tweets tend to be surface level. DMs tend to be deeper. You can go much deeper and into a much more deeper conversation using the DM because it is private. People feel more at ease opening up to other people when the conversation is private. And then the last part of this is showing up. One amazing thing that I can tell you is no matter what you see, if you see that thing every single day, it becomes interesting. Like if I see a dog on the street, I see a brown beagle on the street, similar to my guy here who is already back at the bathroom door. So I see that a brown beagle on the street, and he's running, wagging his tail, doing his beagle thing. The first day I noticed, hey, look, a dog, that's cool. I have my own dog, so I don't pay that much attention to him. The second day I pay a little bit more, and on the 100th day he becomes super interesting. Why is that beagle here every single day? Is the dog homeless? Do I need to adopt him? What do I do now? And suddenly, from something that was not important or interesting to me at all, it became important and interesting to me because it was there. It showed up and it was consistently there. It was part of my life for so long and for so many times that I had to pay attention to it. This is kind of like how social media works. This is called the mere exposure effect. I will get through the untemplated skit. Yes, I will. This is one of the coolest parts. So I started showing it because this is one of the more important factors, but we'll get to DMs and we'll get to tweets and comments. So the act of showing up is important. My suggestion there is very simple. Instead of trying to do 7 hours of Twitter every single day, 700 comments and all that, like I've seen very, very many crazy numbers of people trying to do way too much, to be fair, and trying to achieve a lot of Twitter stuff very, very fast. My suggestion is take 5 minutes and spend 5 minutes every single day on Twitter. When you can do that, add another slot of 5 minutes. When you can do that, add another one. And get that to as many times per day as you can. The more time you spend, the faster you'll grow. There is no secret there. people who are currently growing very fast are currently spending 2, 3, up to 6 or 7 hours per day on Twitter. And this is part of the game. But if you are consistent, growth will come. So this is one of the important parts to focus on. You don't need to make that growth insanely fast. You just need to be consistent, do your stuff, and every day you put towards it is one extra time that you might go viral, that you're putting towards this trust bucket, and everything is filling up slowly and steadily until eventually and inevitably you have a massive Twitter account, a massive audience that trusts you, and you can make this a side business, you can make this your main thing, or you can make this into some sort of a crazy empire, whatever is on your mind. Now, let's get back to comments. When it comes to comments, comments have to be building the main piece of content. The general idea is as follows. Whenever you see some piece of content, let's try doing this live, to be fair. I have no idea if this is going to work. We might fail miserably, but let's see. Maybe this is going to work. Currently, you can see the algorithm very much favors giveaways. Like my For You page is just giveaways lately, which is insane. But it is what it is. So let's take this one. The guy says he had 4 followers, then 208, and so on and so forth. And he's saying showing up every day is great, and he says good morning. Cool. So this is just a post. It's not a deep post. It's not a topic that's worth 1,000 hours of discussion. But at the same time, it is something that can allow for a little bit of a personal moment. So in this case, what would make a lot of sense? Perfect. Yeah. So what would make a lot of sense? I always like everything that I comment. One thing that I do with threads is I use the keyboard shortcut. It's so much faster, but that's the engineer in me speaking. So that is why I feel the need to do that. So let's look at the comments here. I like this, and let's look at the comments. So we can see that we'll have 2 categories of comments. The first category is people just answering to his good morning with another good morning and some sort of a good day wish, nothing super fancy. And the second the second type of comment would be commenting on this compounding that he did. So we can see Sebastian talking about the compounding effect and Brian saying good morning. And then you can see good morning, and then you can see another good morning, and so on and so forth. So here you can see a very clear pattern. And this is kind of what you need to look for in those places. So if I say, good morning, or if I comment on the compounding effect, I will be bringing value, like I will make the person feel a little bit nice, but I will probably not be standing out a lot. So it depends on what my goal with this relationship is. So if I see this thing has, let's see how many comments it has 53 comments. If I just say good morning now, that would be kind of boring. So we can do something more creative here and do the opposite of everyone else and do something funny, like saying good night or saying I never sleep or something crazy like that. This is kind of my style. I like being over the top, but at the same time, we can share a similar story that happened to us. So I don't remember my follower count, so we're not doing this live, but basically I can just copy his original tweet. I'll go through my own numbers. I started on the 15th of December, and I had like 100 followers. Then I got to like 1,000 in January. Then in February I got to like 3,500 and whatever. I'm at like 40 something. I don't know. So I can mimic his style of thread and kind of start with stay in this same tune. Mimicry is one of the strongest types of connection that we do. If you look at any conversation between 2 people who enjoy each other's company, very visible with couples, but you can see this in professional environments. You can see it with people who just met. It doesn't need to be like someone who is super close to the other person. People start mimicking the way they move and the way they react. Like I love waving my hands like a madman, and I've seen so many people start waving their hands in a very similar way while talking to me. people that I know genuinely don't do that. And I've seen myself sitting in poses that I generally don't sit in when I'm speaking to a person who likes those poses and sits in that specific way. So this applies to Twitter as well. Basically, anything that applies to interpersonal relationships can apply to Twitter if you think about it a little bit. Okay, so those are two options for this specific comment. Again, this is a good morning tweet. It's not something that would inspire a lot of creativity. It would not be something that you would be able to answer in 1,000 different ways. If you can't think of a very creative, super cool answer, there is a very simple strategy to follow. Do the boring answer. It doesn't need to be creative. Like if you can think of a creative thing to say it. That's cool. Like you can stand out, especially with bigger creators, you can get some attention there and you can be seen amongst everyone else who is just sending the generic comments. But sometimes you don't have it and it's fine. I can just say here, good morning, dude. It's already evening though. That's it. This is the entire thing. I don't need to work harder than that. I don't need to make this more fancy. It is fine. Like this creates the conversation, that creates this moment, and it's okay. If 1 of 10 of my tweets is creative, cool, that's perfect. I don't need to make everything perfect. So we go down and we look at other examples and so on and so forth. Now, let's see. This is something that I really like. I think that this is one of the best ones. So one of the things that works extremely well is people feeling that you're similar to them. People bond over similarities and over common enemies. This is the two options, more or less, for creating strong bonds. And here we have a very cool option. One option is for me to express my similarity in a comment. I can say, hey, I relate with this so much. I also suck with community groups. I do suck with community groups. Like I'm not making stuff up as I'm doing this. I'm just being absolutely fair. And typically, the more stuff you share about yourself, the better this thing works. So I can say, hey, I also suck at those, and something like so. This is option 1, though. Option 2 can be even cooler. I can take this tweet and DM Chris and say, hey, Chris, I really enjoyed this post that you made about the community groups. I typically do this for threads, to be fair. Like this is not the best example for this, but at the same time, it would work. It doesn't matter that much. So if I really felt like this was me, I can say this was me. This is me, I think is better. Or I can send a message. And this is how DMs start. I use 2 types of DMs. Number 1 is I say, hey, I'm here to help and I'm opening the door to conversations. That's the DM. I don't ask for anything. I don't sell anything. I'm just saying, hey, I'm friendly. That's it. I don't need to be more than that. And if the other person is also in the mood for DMs in that specific moment, we can chat. If they're not, that's fine. Like the DM is not there to, yes, thank you, Ted. Perfect. So the goal of every single DM is not to get the perfect response every single time. You will get a bunch of them unanswered. You will ignore some DMs in your lifetime as well. It will happen. I thought I would never ignore a DM, and here I am getting 5 to 10 different cold DMs per day, and I am ignoring some of them because life is too short to answer all of them. So you send a message, hey, I enjoyed this piece of content. That was great. Thank you. That's it. That can strike a conversation. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It doesn't matter. It's yet another step towards trust. If people see me in their DMs, I just slip into their DMs. If people see me there, that would build even more trust because people who send direct messages are far fewer than people who engage in public. So the more times people see your face, the more times you can get this thing called the mere exposure effect, which is the more times we see something, the more interesting it becomes. Same situation as with the dog. The source is yes. So the the more times you engage with the person, the more trust you build, and so on and so forth. And option 1 for DMs is, hey, I'm opening the door to conversation. Option 2 is, hey, I enjoyed this piece of content. Those two have served me extremely well. And option 3 is, of course, doing a cold DM and offering something. I typically like giving stuff for free and being brutally honest. So I'm not currently doing cold DMs because I don't really want to sell something right now. But if I do write a cold DM, I would say, hey, this is a cold DM. And I'll take it from there. I don't need to hide it. I don't need to make it hyper personalized. I just want to be honest. And if people resonate with that, they will probably resonate with me. That would make them better customers. Okay, we're at the end of this chapter, and I'll give you an extra tip. This extra tip has allowed me to talk to some of the biggest creators. I have so many people who follow me who have 20, 30, 50, 100,000 followers, which I even had when I was a 200 follower account. And it's mostly to this one thing that I have been doing for forever, and it is so powerful and no one does it. Nice. I like that you're excited. So here is the trick. When you want to get to in front of somebody so you can build trust, this can be difficult. Like if you go to Rob Lannon's profile, because I know everyone loves Rob and we should, he's amazing. But if I go on his profile, oh, okay, yeah, I gave 2 examples for DMs, but I'll give a couple more kids. So when you go to Rob's profile and when you comment on one of his threads, he gets like 600 comments in about 13 seconds. And it's very, very likely he would not have the physical capacity to see your comment. So it's a bit of a game of chance. You roll the dice and maybe you get seen and maybe, get to build some trust. Now, how do you go around that? The answer is newsletters. Every big creator has a newsletter. It is so easy to reply to a newsletter. You get the exact same exposure. You have all the place you want for you to write your response. And very few people do it. No one does it. You're in a space in which they get like 10 replies per newsletter, maybe 100 replies. Even though I don't know a creator who gets more than 20 per day. But let's say they get 20 replies of their newsletter every single day. When they post a thread, they will get 500 or 1,000. So the difference, like it's a numbers game. If you reply to the newsletter, you get more exposure, you get seen more easily, and you get to benefit from that a lot. Thank you. This will be recorded, so you're welcome. And if you need anything, DM me on Twitter or send me a message on Twitter or anywhere, and I'll help out. Okay, so specific examples for DMs. I sent DMs once again for new followers. I used to do this until I hit about 2,000. I send DMs just to say hi. When someone is engaged with my content and I see them a couple of times, I say, hey, hi, thank you for being engaged, opening the door for DMs. It's enough. And finally, when I like a piece of content, that's it. I don't do any more of that. I don't think I need to, but that alone lets me send 10 to 20 DMs per day, and that tends to be more than enough. Okay, any more questions about threads? Not threads, sorry, comments or DMs, because we're now getting into the juicy part. Okay, doesn't seem like it. Okay, let's get to the first part. This is we're starting to get into the meat of everything. The first chapter is getting your first 1,000 followers. This is one of the hardest journeys for most people. Now, keep in mind, if your Twitter account happens to be new, in the first 28 days, I think, you get a ridiculous amount of exposure. So with some accounts that have kind of stagnated around 1,000 or maybe 2,000 followers, it can be beneficial to just remake your account. In my case, I had an old account which I abandoned for years, which had when I picked it back up at around 13,000 followers, and the following was so disengaged with me that it was easier for me to just start anew. I posted a thread, not a thread, but a call to action saying, "Hey, I'm moving my account," and like one person liked that. So it was, uh, it was not an account that can get me, all the massive likes and followers and everything. Currently, it's set up to automatically retweet my tweets to kind of cheat the algorithm a little bit. I don't think it helps a lot, but giving numbers to machines typically is useful. So, first of all, when it comes to growing your first 1,000 followers, the first step is, what is my niche? Everyone gets stuck on how to pick my niche. What do I need to talk about? How do I make this sub niche that is perfect and no one else knows about? And what do I talk about? And I need to find it and stick to it forever. The reality is, no one knows their niche when they're starting to create. That is 1,000% true. I started creating and writing 8 years ago, I think, in different ways. I started with my blog, and then made that into a nonprofit, then moved to YouTube. Still doing YouTube. YouTube is amazing. And finally, I moved into Twitter. And all of those things have evolved as I evolved and grew as I grew. So don't get fixated on the niche. Get fixated on yourself. Build yourself to be an interesting person, do interesting things, and the niche will come in time. My niche became digital leverage 2 weeks ago. Before that, I was still figuring out how do I want to communicate this. I jumped between 7 different ideas. I have 8 domains that I've never used because I purchased them, super excited that this was going to be it, and it wasn't. This is the first one of those ideas that actually stuck for more than 2 days. And I do think that this is what I'm going to be sticking with for at least a year. At least this is the plan. So when you're starting without a niche, you just start creating different things. The idea is that every single tweet you make is one tiny little experiment. If you see people engaging with that idea, then the experiment is successful. If you don't see people engaging with this idea, you repeat the experiment again later. It doesn't mean it's not successful. It means that you're just not lucky enough. Especially at the beginning, there is a lot of luck involved in this. Your biggest inspiration should and will come from comments, and most of your tweets should come from just taking a comment that you wrote that performed better than average and just making that into a separate tweet. One good tip for comments is try to make them feel like separate tweets. People should be able to take any one of your comments and retweet that. If that is possible, then your comments are perfect. Like, you want that to be one of the highest things on your mind after them being valuable for someone and helping you build that relationship. So the first part is do something interesting and talk about it. If you've done interesting stuff in your life before, which would be true for most of you, and you probably don't realize it, but start talking about your past experiences. It can be how you fell down the stairs that one day, or how, this is a true story, the other day I failed to make popcorn. I have had this craving for popcorn for a while, and I don't want the microwave stuff. I want the real stuff. Like, my grandmother used to make the best popcorn in the world, like every grandmother. And I have been craving that specifically. And I have never in my life successfully made popcorn on on the stove. So I have been trying this about once a week because it's very stinky and it's annoying. But every single week I go and I start popping it and I burn it every single week. But one day I'm going to nail that, and I'm going to just make the best popcorn. I'm committing to this now. Anyway, so it doesn't need to be a massive story. This is an example. Like, you can talk about something that is somewhat trivial and it feels somewhat trivial, but it can be interesting to other people. Like, they're learning a little bit about another human being. People are the most interesting thing that ever existed, and for now. It is so powerful to just share something about yourself. about your experiences. And very often, things that we find are extremely boring and obvious will not be obvious to anyone else. And if you can take something that's obvious to you and share it with other people, you're giving value. It's as simple as that. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Do not underestimate the value that you have. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone is super interesting. The only thing is finding, I can't say finding the interesting stuff in you. It's not like that. It's finding the courage to start sharing about yourself and about your life. And once you start doing that, you get to see more and more people resonating with different types of different things, different stories. Just a second ago, I commented on Chris's post, which was saying, I don't engage with communities. How is that powerful, potent content? How is that under any formula? It is not. It is just him sharing something about himself personally. And because I resonated with that, and I genuinely do, I'm like, yeah, I do this as well because I genuinely struggle with the same thing. And that again builds community, that builds trust. I know we're similar things, tend to work well together. So I trust him a little bit better. And probably he trusts me a little bit better after this. So tell people about the stuff that you did. And if you don't do anything that you can talk about, do something interesting. Go on a class, learn something new, make something crazy, watch a YouTube video and implement it, or just watch a bunch of YouTube videos and tell the story about how you saw those many YouTube videos. It frankly does not matter. Just do something and tell the story. It would probably be a very boring story, not because the actual story was boring the first time, but because you couldn't tell it as well as you want to tell it. And that's normal because storytelling is something that you develop in time. But unless you do it a couple of times, you're not going to learn it. And of course, it doesn't matter how well you tell the story, there will be always people who see themselves in it and resonate with it. So don't worry about that either. We're still at part 2. We have 2 more of those. So this is going to be interesting. Don't worry. The first 2 parts are mostly getting the understanding of how everything works. Everything else is doing more, basically. It's not getting increasingly more complicated. In fact, a lot of the further growth is actually getting easier and easier. Okay, so second problem after the brand. The brand is do something, tell about it. The second part is who do you follow? This is a tough question, but I didn't plan to, but I can mention the tools that I use. I am currently using HypeFury. Although if you don't want to pay for HypeFury or TweetHunter, which are the 2 main tools, which can be a little bit expensive, you have 2 options that I can recommend. The first one, which I do recommend and not particularly like, but it's free and a lot of people can't afford tools, is TypeShare. This is Dickie Bush's and Nicholas Cole's tool. It includes templates and a bunch of other things, but more importantly, it includes a queue so you can schedule your posts and get them go out on Twitter and LinkedIn, which can be very, very handy. And the queue is part of the free offering of that tool. So if you can't pay for anything, TypeShare is a good resource to use. If you can pay for something, but you don't want to pay, like, I don't remember how much HypeFury was. I paid for it like 4 months ago and forgot about it. But I think that both TweetHunter and HypeFury were about $50 a month. If you don't want to pay that, there is an amazing tool, up and coming tool, which is called Sideboard. It is super impressive. It is pretty small, very lightweight and easy to use. And it's just a cool developer on Twitter. And it's like $7 a month or something like that. It's super cheap, and it is beautifully made. Doesn't support LinkedIn yet, but for Twitter, it's one of the coolest toys you can take. This is all I'm going to recommend. Make tweeting and retweeting and all the stuff that is typical for Twitter. There are a couple of things you need. Easy. Everything else you can do on Twitter natively. The analytics would suck. This is part of Twitter. There are several ways to get better analytics. All of them are paid, unfortunately. The built-in ones are pretty bad, but I would use the built-in ones and export them to Excel if I really want to analyze them instead of paying for a tool back in the first month. And so we got scheduling, and for engagement, you don't need a special tool. You just need TweetDeck. TweetDeck is absolutely fantastic, and I'll show you how I set up mine. We can't spend forever on it, but I'll show you real quick how does mine look, because I think this can be very, very useful. Sidebird is the name of the cheaper tool. Yes, Sidebird, like a bird to the side, like the tweety thing to your side. Yes. Yes, thank you. Okay, so this is my TweetDeck setup for engagement. I will not be able to go through every detail, but I'll go through two of the important details. The first one is lists. Everyone on Twitter is saying you should use lists. Lists are super important. And until I wrote the thread on it, I had never seen a thread explaining why lists are important. It was mostly you should do them. They're very useful. Do them in step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but never why are they important. Lists are important because they can allow you to disconnect from the main timeline, to disconnect from the For You page, and just engage with a specific group of people. If you're doing the 5-minute slot that I mentioned, you can very easily distribute your engagement and your attention on Twitter, which is kind of difficult, between the different groups of people that you want to build trust with. So if you go to the For You page, you're going to engage with people at random. The For You page decides you should see that, and then you see that, and maybe you interact with it. If you make a list, you only see what you want to see. This is so important. So I make, oh, look, Carol has a new profile picture. Amazing. So I make 3 lists. The first list is called friends, as you can see right here. This is the friends list. This is people that I genuinely want to talk to. Those are amazing people, every single one of them. And I try to talk to them every single day. This is not people that I want to be my customers. This is not people that I want to eventually follow me. Those are people that I just consider my friends. And I have a bunch of them here, and I try talking to them as much as I can every single day, because if someone is going to support me, it is going to be people from that list, the people that I engage the most often. The next list is with future friends. This is people that I want to be friends with and I'm building trust towards, but they don't necessarily feel the same way towards me. And this is people that I'm currently building trust with. And then I have superstar future friends, which are those massive accounts that I want to connect with eventually. You can see that, by the way, this is TweetDeck. It's a free tool by Twitter. You just write tweetdeck.twitter.com, like so. And you get it, and you can configure it, and you can use it. If you need more tips on how to use it, we can get through that. I have top tweets. This is just the standard thing. I have my DMs, and I have my notifications. Nothing super fancy there. So those 3 lists allow me to structure my engagement in a way that allows me to consciously decide how much time I want to spend on every single part of the circle of people that I'm talking to. So what do you do when, how do you use the lists? First of all, you go to your account. Let's just open up Twitter. I'll show you. You go to your profile, click more, and you click lists. I have a lot of them. Don't get scared of that. You will need 3. I was testing so many things. That's why I have a lot of them. You can see that I have just a few of them pinned. So here you have the friends, the future friends, the superstar future friends, 3 of them. You create 3 lists using this button here. They just need a name. I would make them private if I were you. Once you have the lists, every time you open up a new account, let's scroll and find somebody new. I'm following Mikos. Let's go to explore. That would be easier. Perfect. So every time I go to somebody that I want to follow, I do click the follow button. That's fine. But I also click on the more button and I add them to my lists. So you'll have 3 of them. You'll make only 3. I'll make a bunch of them. I am a special person who needs to have many things. Otherwise, I feel like my life is empty and my soul is void, and the darkness settles. Anyway, my first 3 lists are on the bottom, and I just add the person to one of the 3 lists, click save, and follow them. That's it. If you pick this habit up, in a couple of weeks, you'll have your lists ready and you'll be able to engage with them however you want and whenever you need to engage with them. So no pressure there. And that way, by doing it in that structured way, it becomes automatic. Once it becomes a habit, you don't need to think about it at all, which is kind of comfy because you don't really need to constantly be backfilling those lists with people that you thought should fit in there and so on. That makes life so much easier. Okay, so when it comes to engagement, that is my suggestion. Just use TweetDeck. TweetDeck is so good and it is so free. So I would suggest using this because it's powerful. Twitter takes care of the support. You won't get shadow banned. You won't get any of the nasty stuff that engagement tools can give you. And that is always a very, very nice thing. So how do we find the accounts to follow? This is the next part, which I think is very, very important. To find accounts that you might be interested in, just use Twitter search. You don't need anything super fancy. Either go to someone that you like and look at other accounts that are following that person, or accounts that that person is following, depending on the specific use case, or search using the Twitter search. What I search for is typically topic tip. Let's say I want to find people who are active in the productivity space. I write for a productivity tip. And then I look at the top tweets and I pick somebody, and I can check their other content and if I like it, I can follow them. You typically want to follow, when you're starting out, I would say about 50 people should be enough. Once you have a bunch of them, you will find your followers, the people to follow organically. You don't need to go and look for people to follow every single day. You might do this once in a while, but it's not important. The important part is getting a few, so you have your timeline filled up with people that you like, that teaches the Twitter algorithm what you like, and then the Twitter algorithm does that for you and just gives you stuff that you might like. So it gets easier with time. Okay. This is the first stage. In the first stage, you have 2 daily tasks. The first task is you write 2 tweets every single day. You can schedule them and write tweets just once a week for a little bit, or you can sit down and, on your phone, brush up a tweet twice per day. It doesn't matter, whatever you feel like. The idea of those tweets is not to get a lot of attention. The idea is for you to get used to writing tweets, because your tweets will be slightly different and feel slightly different compared to comments. That's why you want to start practicing them. The second thing you want to do every single day is write at least 20 comments every single day. You just go through at least 20 accounts. You can do this in those 5 minutes. You can just do it all at once. You can do it. You shouldn't do it once a week. That doesn't work. I've tried it. I've went to, I think, 560 comments was my highest day. That does not work. You don't get anything super special for posting that amount of comments, and your quality starts dropping because you get tired. So it is not a strategy that works. So just split those between every single day of the week and put a little bit of time daily instead of trying to put a lot of time on the weekend. I know it is a little bit more difficult, but once you build the habit, you can do it once after lunch, you can do it once before dinner. You can find a couple of spots in the day. It's not too difficult. Okay, any questions so far? Because we're going to speed up a little bit. The next 2 sections are getting way more straightforward. Cool. Okay, and if anyone gets a question after watching this in the recording, find me on Twitter and send me a message. I will answer you, and we will figure out whatever you struggle with. And I also have a bazillion threads that we can reference and we can learn from. Cool. So the next step is starting to focus on your writing. Yes, 20 comments a day and 2 tweets. This is, until you get to 1,000 followers, this is a very solid start. If you want to grow faster, you write more comments. Yes, 2 new tweets, 20 comments, twice twice hand finger eatings. Yes, hand sausages, 105 hand sausages 4 times. Yes. I swear I'm great at English speaking stuff. So once you reach, I broke the guide down into round nice numbers, but that's not what you care about. Once you reach a point in which you're getting engagement on every single one of your tweets, if you tweet something, someone or a few people are going to like it and potentially comment on it. Once you get there, you're ready for the next stage. It doesn't need to be at 1,000. For some people, that happens at 300. For some people, that happens at 1,500. On average, I think around 1,000 is where it happens. For most people, that's why I focused on that number. But again, don't get stuck on the number. You can do more at all times, and you'll grow faster. Example with the initial growth stage to 1,000, you just post more comments. If you have the time to post 50 a day, post 50 comments a day. You will grow faster. My typical days are about 150 comments. So you can go to very, very high numbers, and once you get used to it, you won't even feel it. So the next part is 1, getting ideas, 2, learning how to write better, and 3, making some sort of a template that you can use for your writing. So let's start with part 1, which is generating ideas. Generating ideas, I often reference something by Dickie Bush because he has a fantastic framework called the Endless Idea Generator. Let me find it, because I think I can just share that with you and we can focus on some other stuff. Yes, here we go. Okay, I'll post it here in the comment section of our thing. Yes, perfect. Yeah, cool. So this idea generator is kind of simple. I'll explain it very briefly because it's part of their course. I don't want to spend forever on it, but it's publicly available, so I don't think anyone would mind terribly. So you get this image. This image has 3 steps. It's very, very simple. You have what kind of a topic you want to write about, and you don't need to have a niche again. The niche is you, but you want to pick one specific topic to write about. Obviously, you can't talk about everything you care about in one single thread. I've tried it, it doesn't work. So pick one single thing. Next, make that thing more specific. Try to narrow it down to the most specific parts that you care about. So instead of talking about, let's say, investing, you can talk about investing for single moms or single dads or whatever. This makes it so much more relatable. Fewer people will want to read that, but they will be way more incentivized to do so. And if you do it well enough, people who are outside of that community would be curious to understand what's so special about this for that specific category of people, for single moms or for single dads, and they will open it as well. So this works in both directions. It can be very, very cool and very easy to attract people by basically making it less accessible. It's very weird, but it works. Next, you need some credibility. Have you done that before? If you have done it before, then just say, hey, I've done this for X many years or X many times. That's fine. And if you haven't done it before, find someone who did do it and used an approach that you did use, and highlight them as the superstar, because that would give your words as someone on Twitter more credibility, and that's usually better. And then just combine that with one of the 4 categories. They have actionable, aspirational, anthropological, and analytical. Basically, the actionable is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Step 1, steal a lot of money from a bank. Step 2, convince the bank that you didn't steal the money. Step 3, invest the money in the same bank and then laugh. This is very basic investing. You shouldn't try that. Aspirational is like, here's how I did it. Here's super many motivational ideas. What I typically do is I just tell someone who is very successful. I pick someone who's very successful and I share their story. And that works really, really well. I just go through what steps did I take. I do a little bit of research, a little bit of reading, and then I create a story around someone who achieved what I want. Or I tell my story about, let's say, how I learned magic or how I did that other thing that I'm sure I did. Next, we have analytical. You do a breakdown of, why something works. This is the more logical type of breakdown. It's like, okay, this is the trend, and logically, this trend means that this is going to be very popular next month. And if this is popular, then this product would sell very well. So you should build that product and sell it. This type of content can work really well with some audiences. And finally, we have the anthropological content, which I don't really get often, but I take it as analyzing something that already happened and kind of breaking this into its emotional components. This part I'm the worst at, so I'm not really delving deep into because I'm not good at it. Cool. And you can use that to generate your ideas. I think that this is a fantastic start. If you want to learn how to write better, Dicky is a great account to follow. We have Erica. I'll send her thing as well. Just read Erica and you'll learn how to write. I think this is the easiest way, to be fair, without going through those 100 accounts. And yeah, once you start working on your writing, and again, this is more about the mindset of, hey, I'm learning how to write, not about some specific milestone. The specific milestone is working on your writing and being mindful of how you write. The more you write, the better you'll become, and things are going to in time just be better and better and better. So you don't need to worry about that too much. Next, we have the ideas, we have the writing, and we're to the part that is the creating your own framework. What I suggest is picking a framework for writing your threads. So you take your idea, you take your story, and step one, you write it into a listicle. Listicles are so much easier to write, and they don't require that much brain power. They don't require you to kind of figure out the perfect story. At some point, you'll move away from them. At least most people move away from them, although I don't think it's necessary, but they're the easiest thing to start with. Even if you have a story, list the story with first happened thing A, then happened thing B, but then happened thing C, and then I reacted with thing D, and finally, and surprisingly, thing F happened. So, if you build it into a story, you can use a listicle pretty much everywhere. So how a thread should be structured is you have a hook. This is something to grab the attention of people. We can do a whole other session for hooks, but we don't have the time right now. Then you have the actual story or the actual listicle. Then you have a summary. Summaries are very, very useful because surprisingly, to me at least, people do forget what they read 30 seconds ago. I'm not like that, but I have a ton of friends who are exactly like that, and summaries are so helpful for them to get everything and compress it into their head and understand it better. So if you want to teach people, summaries are one of the best ways to increase that. And then you can add a call to action. That can be, hey, if you like this, give me a thumbs up, or follow me, or tattoo my name on your forearm. That is my favorite one. So you create this framework for yourself. Like this sample one is going to work perfectly fine. You don't need to be super fancy with it, and that's good enough. At this point of time, you can start optimizing your profile. You can make it a little bit cooler, but the only thing I will focus on is your profile picture. Make sure that it is contrasty and you can see that in the timeline. Like if you have this iPhone photo that is taken in pitch darkness and you can see a nose and maybe one eye and then everything else is black, that's not a super interesting picture. Just take something, remove the background using whatever free tool you find, and put a bright color behind. You want this to be seen on a timeline, and you want people, when they scroll, to see your face, staring at them and ready to eat their soul if they don't like. Like you want to intimidate them with a smile. The smile is important. So at that point, once you are at the point of over those 1,000 followers, it's a good time to start writing threads. And that's why I mentioned the framework. I would aim for one thread per week. You don't need to do a lot of them. I did one thread per day for quite a long time to understand how thread works better, and I still have ways to learn. So, but at the 1,000 followers, you're not going to get a lot of traction with those threads. So be prepared to spend a bunch of hours on something and not get a bunch of likes on it. That's fine because you're not doing it for the likes, you're doing it to learn. Once you learn, your threads are going to become better. But everything else stays the same. You write your 20 comments, you post your 2 tweets, and you post a thread. And the thread you post just once per week. You don't need to do way more than that. This is more than enough. I ensure you to grow your account to 10,000 followers. You'll need to do this for a while, of course. Consistency does matter, as I already mentioned, but it is more than enough. Now, when it comes to growing above 10,000 followers, and I'll really glance over that because we're out of time, and because it's, I think, the easiest part, and people just make it more complicated than they need to be. Things that can help there is 1, automation, 2, improving your writing even more, of course, and 3, improving your editing even more. If you can do those things, those are the 3 hacks there. Everything else is just doing more of the same. If you can scale up the numbers, that's better. So when you're above 10,000, you can do 2 threads per week or 3 threads per week. You can do 40 comments per day instead of 20, and you can do like 2, 3, 4, 5 tweets per day. Basically, the tweets per day, your upper limit is how many tweets can you post and still get engagement. If you can post once and get engagement, post once. If you can get 5 in and still get people reacting, do 5. It's fine. The general idea is you want to keep the algorithm warm, so to speak, because if you don't get engagement on something, the algorithm decides that you suck and you're the worst person ever for some reason, and then it becomes a little bit of an uphill battle. So I would suggest keeping the post to something that you can manage consistently and something that people can manage consistently to read. If you get that, cool. Then scale it to as many as you can or want. I've seen accounts post just once per day, even with a lot of followers, and I've seen accounts post like a bunch of times per day. Doesn't matter. Everything goes. And this is one of the, to be fair, the easiest part, so to speak, the easiest in terms of strategy. In terms of execution, it's a lot of work, of course. It gets more and more time consuming and more and more demanding, because not only you're spending that more time on creating more content, but you start getting engagement, and it's nice to engage back. At some point, you won't be able to engage back with something. I'm able to do this most days, but there are some days, especially something blows up, that I just can't keep up with everything. Like I've had days in which I spent 3+ hours just replying to my own comments, not writing new stuff, not writing new comments, just replying to the stuff that came in. That is normal, and realizing that a big part of this giving process is, putting a sensible barrier for you so you don't go crazy, is also important. But as long as you can, engage with people, be the best person you are, and that's okay. But at some point, if you feel it's too much, it's okay to not answer to everything. It's okay to not answer every single DM. You decide how much you want to engage, and people won't be mad about it. I've had people DM me several times, and I answered on the 4th attempt, for example, and people were still happy to talk to me. So yes, a few people might get super offended that you didn't immediately pay attention to them, but I would rather have that than go crazy and do nothing else but Twitter. I would prefer to be a healthy, sane person who can help people instead of an unhealthy, insane person. Although the sanity is questionable. So yeah, this is the last step. This is the last part of the framework. This is going to 100,000. And yeah, very weird in webinar format. I typically jam with the audience and just look at people's eyes and drain their energy and understand what to do next. With a webinar, I just see the chat, and you have been awesome, by the way, with the chat, but it's still new to me. So, any questions? so many people with no questions. Everyone understood everything perfectly or fell asleep. In either case, goal achieved. I'm glad it was. Again, a lot of this is documented on my account. I'm doing this in a course to make it a little bit more manageable. This is a lot of information for an hour. I do realize right now. I thought I could do it in 40 minutes, and for us to have 20 minutes for questions, I was so wrong. But yeah, if you have anything, send me a message. I will answer, and I will help you out. And yeah, cool. Unmute yourself.
You're right. That was on me. We'll edit that part out. No, this was super helpful. I was picking up and taking notes the entire time. And this whole thing is available to record too. So we should definitely do something to repurpose it and continue, spreading the tips. For a lot of this, I'd love to see some of it. Like, I mean, you could obviously do like a whole course about this, but I would love to see some of the the frameworks and things. Like, we almost like need to list them out in an ebook or a resource guide or something, because there's just so much of it. But this
I'm
was
working
awesome.
on a Twitter course currently, recorded with everything you can imagine. Like it has all the steps, it has checklists for all the steps, it has daily checklists, it has videos, but it is so much work. So I haven't been able to quite finish it yet. But I will finish it yet, and I'll give it away for free as well.
Hey, we love to hear it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll do a few more like this, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. But if you guys are watching this later and you want to hit up Jordan, your Twitter is at Jordan D Parker _. That's right.
Yes.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. It's like I think I got it right.
Because my name is taken otherwise.
I know. I saw that. So definitely check out what Jordan is working on and doing. I'm always learning a ton from you. So I really appreciate you being here to share some of this expertise. And I'm definitely going to be sending this around to, friends, clients, people who continuously ask me, like, how do you do it? How can you upscale, up level yourself on Twitter? This is like, you laid out all the sauce. So thank you so much for it. Anything else to add, Jordan? I know we could have explored this for hours.
Yes, that is my concern with me speaking generally, because that's how my everything I do ends. It's too long. Anyhow, so that was very fun. If anyone needs extra information, just hit me up. I will help. I'm not currently trying to sell anything. I will sell you stuff, but build a very, very successful business, start making a ton of money, and I'll charge you a ton of money for services.
There you go.
Right now, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's in the building phase. I love it. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast. We're going to be jumping on Twitter Spaces tomorrow to talk a little bit about more on a space about Twitter, about building community and some of these growth tactics. So I would love to have you there, Jordan. I know there's a time difference, but either way, I'll be sharing that out to the community. So thank you all for being part of this. I'm going to shut this down, but we'll still be backstage, Jordan. So thank you everyone for tuning in.